Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and this is Militia. $5.99 comes out on the Steam store today. It is by Brain Good Games, and it is a strategy turn-based game, very similar to games like 868 Hack. Now, before I begin this review, I want to make sure you guys know that this key was obtained from the developer for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion in any way, but you guys should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Alright, let's get right into it. Now, there are two sides, a light side and a dark side. We're going to start with the light side at this point, but they basically play the same. Every game starts off with an 8x8 grid that is procedurally generated in terms of the pieces that are placed on it. You'll have 2 to 3 hero pieces on your side and then X amount of monster pieces. The object of each game is simple. Kill the starred pieces in question, aka the generals on the other side, while still trying to keep your pieces alive, at least one of them at least. Now, each piece does have its own movement pattern and its own attack pattern. As you see, the cavalry here can move 2 spaces and only 2 spaces, and can attack up to 2 spaces away in any direction. Now, each piece does have its own unique flair to it, and it does add some strategy to the game, making sure that you keep specific pieces alive, while making sure that the other ones don't necessarily get in trouble themselves. This game is very much like chess. At the core, the game's basic strategy elements work. The game does have a chess-like appeal to it. The fact of the matter is that you only have a limited amount of pieces, and protecting them in any way possible is important. In particular, the fact is that if you keep a piece too much in a corner, for example, you can get overrun with the amount of enemies that are there. Now, basically, it works. Notice how I'm using the word basically, though. Now, the gameplay does evolve as you get new pieces as you go along in the ranks, and there are some good combinations that can occur. In particular, when the strategy element starts going to the next level, and what I mean by the next level is that when you get pieces interacting with each other. Now, I'll explain that in a little bit when we get a piece in particular that sort of shows that strength, but when the pieces are used in creative ways, I do like that mechanic of the game. The problem here, in my mind, is the objective. The thing is that every game is based off the star creatures that you have to kill, not the other creatures in question. So regardless of what the other pieces are doing, as long as you're able to take those star pieces out, you're fine. The thing is that while that sounds great on paper and it can work on a basic level, sooner or later that gets tiring. The fact is that the game's difficulty isn't that hard at this point. Even at rank 6, at rank 5, I wasn't really having a problem figuring out what the next move was. One of my major gripes is the AI implementation, and in particular, the AI implementation with the starred general enemies. Now, remember, these are the enemies that are going to complete your win condition, aka take them out and you win the game. Now, on the surface, that seems like it should be a little bit different from the regular other enemy AI, but that's the thing, I don't think it is. One of the major problems is that they will charge with reckless abandon at you, whether or not they are a, general or not. And the thing is that it can be easily exploited because of that. Like, for example, these guys are charging right at me at that point. He can't do anything there. He literally can't, that demon can't do anything with my warrior there. Why move there at that point? But he charged in there because he thinks that's the right move at that point. Why? And unfortunately, that happens on every general. Now, in a game of chess, you will have pieces that sacrifice themselves in order to, get better space on the field or, be able to take a critical piece. You know who doesn't do that? The king. Because the king is sort of the linchpin. If the king does that, well, guess what? The game's over. Now, obviously, you've got more than one king in this situation, but the king, unfortunately, even though it's split up, each piece is still important at that point. And so when every piece charges at you, then it becomes a problem. And unfortunately, it's easily exploitable. Now, some people may not be able to realize it, but I was able to realize it pretty quickly at that point. The AI problem drags the game down in so many different ways that unfortunately it overlooks some of the great positives of the game. For example, the refresh mechanic that the game had, I enjoyed. The fact of the matter is that the game never gave me a challenge in terms of the, number of turns in question. So each floor may have, okay, for this one, 11 turns in order to complete it. I never got to a point where I was ever in trouble, per se, at least in my mind, to the point where, like, I was really panicking about it. But it was still a challenge to be able to minimize the number of turns I used by creatively using, the teleporting mage to refresh an enemy, or to refresh myself to be able to attack again, or the paladin. That I like that. I really want to see more elements like that in games where, in particular, it really rewards you for mechanics like that. But again, it's dragged down by the fact that even with that said, it wasn't necessarily the game that was challenging me in that case, in terms of, the AI is doing something completely different, or the AI is pushing me into a corner where I've got to really think my way out of it. It was more so me just trying to get through it faster at that point. Now, the aesthetic and the music are simplistic. This game really feels like a game designed for iOS or Android, and I understand the game came from Game Jolt, and I understand it was maybe a project that, to be honest with you, worked. I think the puzzle elements of the game works. I also like the minimalistic aspect of the game. The fact is that there is something nice about the simplistic nature of this, and while it's not the most showy, each of the colors, shine through for the certain enemies, and I feel like it does work. I will say this, though. That shade of yellow for the blue doesn't work. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I mean, you've got other ways that you can, represent it. I feel like the dark yellow is like one of those colors that, unless if you're using it for like vomit, or you're using it for something that you don't want people to look at, it just doesn't work, especially with a blue in the background. I believe blue and orange are the complementary colors of each other in terms of like things like Castlevania, for example. I just don't think it worked here. Now, this is a point where I would use a clever Star Wars joke in terms of join the dark side, blah, 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 if I was a clever man at this point, because we're going to take a look at the Dark World section of the game. I am not a clever man. I, am doing YouTube for a living. That should tell you enough. But the Dark World is an interesting mechanic. It has interesting mechanics in it. The fact is that they're not normal. For example, you have a Force Mage that will push people back, and the way you kill people with the Force Mage is to push them into others, like you saw there. While you have the sort of Scythe guy, which can attack either in all four cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, or the other 4 points, the what you would see on a compass, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. Now, what's interesting about the Dark World is that there's a lot more mechanics at play. There is pieces that can, go from the edge of the board and jump to the other edge of the board. Ghosts, are a little bit more basic in terms of, they'll move two at you at this point. But things like the mage, the wand in question, will create explosives that you can use to explode a bunch of people at that point. I felt like the Dark World was a better overall game in terms of the strategy elements, and complemented itself rather nicely. I'm gonna say this though, I wonder why the difference. Why have a light world and a dark world? Why not just have one game that has all these pieces in it? Now, part of me wonders, is it because of the strategy element? Is there something in the combination of these pieces that force the split of things? I don't necessarily believe that per se, but I could see that being an argument, and something that I'm not seeing here being exposed as, okay, that wouldn't have worked for the combination of a knight and this other mage. But I do wonder, like, why the split? Why change this up with a different mode when in fact it's really the same thing? The game also wasn't able to keep up in terms of the new pieces in question. Especially in the light mode, I felt like it was easy to get through at that point, and unfortunately the simpler mechanics in the light mode bored quicker than the other modes in question. Like, even at like rank 4 and 5, you'll notice I'm rank 2 there, I'll explain it in a second. The Dark World was just a lot more fun in the end, where you got the Force Mage, which at first was really, really confusing to use, but once I got a hang of it, I was just like, okay, this is fun. I like the way that this is working. I like the fact that you have to watch out for the edges of the screen. I felt like it was challenging me more, even though the AI again isn't necessarily the greatest. But again, I keep on saying the AI isn't the greatest. It was always that thought in the back of my mind where it's just like, it's hard for me to recommend this game because of that. Now, if you like basic puzzle mechanics and you don't necessarily care about the difficulty, I can see this game working for you. And if you think that what you've seen will, sort of worked for your on the difficulty curve, I will say the game's strategy elements do work. Even at the $6 mark, I felt like the game definitely works in terms of a game like 868 Hack did for its price tag. Now, I also mentioned the rank system. One of the things I want to see changed about the game, if I don't start a map, I'm thinking about this now, whether or not you guys are going to listen to me, sort of go into my thought process. One of the things I didn't like about the game was that, like, when I was recording, I was trying to get the right map to show you guys at the start, to show you, okay, this is the X mechanic, Y mechanic, Z mechanic, so that you guys have an idea of what was going on. But if I didn't get the right map, I restarted, but I lost the rank, even if I hadn't started the map. Now, I can understand, like, okay, you could keep on starting it over and over again until you get the right map, but I don't know. I felt like losing a rank like that didn't work for me. Because, then you lose, like, the ability to have some of the other pieces that were interesting at that point, and so you gotta, work it up again. It's a nitpick, but I just felt like it didn't necessarily need it. I also didn't necessarily think the game needed its turn system. Maybe it would have been a score mechanic that would have worked a little bit nicer, but I just don't see the reason why the turns mechanic is there. It's not like the player really wants to be in a spot where they're taking 100 turns to beat someone. They want to do this in X amount of turns, even if it takes them a while. I don't know, because I never ran into that problem. All right, this is Dragnix signing out. I hope you guys got an idea of what Militia has to offer. Again, it's a game that is very flawed in one way, and unfortunately, it's going to cause me to not recommend it on Steam. It's one of those situations, again, where it's just like, I don't like the fact that it's just recommended and not recommended. It's a game that if you like what you've seen here, and in particular, you don't think the element of the strategy that I mentioned, aka the AI, is that big of a problem for you, if you can enjoy it for what it is, then by all means grab the game, because again, it's a cheaper game. It will work in terms of sort of a memory type of, strategy type chess game, but in the end it just didn't do it for me. I'm going to leave my Steam review in the description below. Again, it always helps to upvote or downvote that depending on whether you liked or disliked the video. Again, that gives me something to work off of in terms of feedback. Again, and if you ever have feedback, I always try to read the comments and try to, respond to them in a timely manner. Again, things have been a little bit crazy this week, so I apologize that has been a little bit lax at this point. But with games like Just Cause 3, which I'm playing in the background now, on the horizon, there's a lot going on. Again, subscribe if you want more content like this. Again, trying to make a career of this. I am almost at 1,000 subscribers, which is nice, and there will be a giveaway as well as a certain logo that I've been promising, aka channel art that's been, sort of in the works, will be revealed. So you may want to ask some other friends to, subscribe to the channel. Not that I'm asking you directly or anything. I would never do that. I suck at this PR thing, don't I? Anyway, I will see you all later, and have a good night. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left-hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left-hand side as well. And if you missed my last video, take a look at the right-hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.